stuck by Eric Holder's guns. Now, there's a lot of discussion going on as to what the Republicans, what are House Republicans, what are they attempting to do here, and when will they put Eric Holder on the stand? Joining me right now, Congressman Todd Akin, who's one of the key players in this saga as it unfolds. And Congressman, first of all, thanks so much for your time. Second of all, is there, and I know that Speaker Boehner's office just released a statement to this effect, saying that there's no daylight between basically where he stands and where Darrell Issa stands. But when is Eric Holder going to go on the stand, and what would be preventing that?
Well, those are good questions, and I think we've had some change in that, actually, in that last month or so. And what's happened is there were several major questions we're looking at. First of all, who approved Fast and Furious, and when did they approve it? Now, DOJ originally last year denied that they had any idea what was going on. So what's happened now, and to kind of bring this up to speed, the committee has subpoenaed Eric Holder. They did that on May 12th, just last month, for documents. They have received 7,000 pages out of 100,000 pages. So obviously what's going on here is considerable foot dragging over the last year. And so Eric Holder has been subpoenaed for the documents, and he is not coming forward with the documents. He said, well, I might be willing to, or this and that. But the fact of the matter, he hasn't just given us the documents. And some of those things have been available. And so at this point, the word is we're going to have a vote on at least in committee, of a contempt of Congress on Wednesday of a week from Wednesday. Now, I was on a letter with a number of other members calling for the resignation of Eric Holder because he's been dragging his feet. He's obviously trying to hide something, unwilling just to be transparent with what was going on this program. A lot of speculation as to what they were trying to do, but there's no speculation about the fact that they have been trying to cover it up.
Now, I know that there is some concern with House Republicans that this may end up distracting the nation's attention from the vulnerabilities of Barack Obama's record if this goes down to a big showdown on the House floor. Is that a legitimate concern, and is that something that you're hearing from other House Republicans?
I haven't really been privy to everybody's thinking on that. A lot of these things, it's a little tricky to know how they're going to bounce. And at least my perspective on how to handle these things, Dana, if you try to get too smart and to guess how many times the Super Bowl is going to bounce off a wall in a particular thing, I think it's better for us just to stick on principle, and when somebody is doing a cover-up, just to go straight at it and try and get the facts on the table. And I think that the public really wants us just to be straightforward, honest, and not try to guess what it's going to do to the election and all those kinds of things.
Right. Do you think that Speaker Boehner, that we will see Eric Holder on the stand, that Speaker Boehner will push to bring him on the stand to testify?
I believe so, but I think we can pretty much get the answer to your question on this contempt of Congress if we vote on that in committee, and then if that comes to the House floor, that really ratchets up what's going on, and it's going to put the pressure on Eric Holder, because if he is in contempt of Congress, my understanding is then that is a criminal violation.
Yes.
And so that's I was just checking with my staff because I didn't know off the top of my head whether or not the Senate had to approve it. If we had to wait for the Senate to approve it, we would be here for another 20 years. But I believe that the House by itself can have this contempt of Congress criminal violation, and I think that is what we really should be doing. I find it particularly offensive. We have a separation of powers here, but when the administration's trying to hide something, I think it's Congress's job to really go in and dig into these things and find out what's going wrong.
Absolutely. Do you think that this would, say this did go down to a House floor showdown, and I know that this is something that Politico, they really, Politico, sometimes you got to take it for what it's worth, but they said that this may be one of the things that Republicans and Democrats both might be concerned about. But from your perspective, it would seem to me that that would be worse for Democrats, that this could be a really great issue that Republicans could use to wield against the Obama administration coming up, especially in the general elections. Do you see that being a useful tool, especially if we keep seeing these deflections from the DOJ?
Well, I think it's very hard for the Democrats to try and justify what they're doing, why they're trying to cover up information, why they're trying to protect Eric Holder, and exactly what is it they're afraid of. And I agree with you. I think when we're on the side of trying to let some sunshine shine into a dark and dirty place, and the fact that now the whistleblowers are being targeted by the administration, the people who gave us a heads up that something was wrong here, that says all the more there's a cover-up.
Right.
And I don't know that just adding one more item in the thousands that already exist of the failure of the Obama administration, I don't know that that hurts the political, or really changes the political dynamic that much, but it may be fresh in people's minds.
Right. I know that the Obama administration has singled you out before and has gone after you. I'm curious as if whether or not you heard Jay Carney's remarks when he dismissed this vote coming up on June 20th, and he cited some anonymous Republican lawmaker and said that this is, according to this Republican lawmaker, this is just politics, and is acting as though this unnamed lawmaker is kind of giving them some cover and saying that this is nothing more than a game of chicken, this is just politics. How would you respond to something like that?
Well, I think that's pretty cynical. Yeah, it really is cynical. What we're interested in is truth, and boy, there's not a large measure of that in Washington, D.C., and I've basically been beating on that drum now for about a year or so because of the fact that just the pure economics, the government is promising to do all this stuff. By default, they're promising that you have your Social Security check and your Medicare check and your Medicare and Medicaid and all these other different things that people assume that the federal government is going to provide them, and the numbers show that it's a hoax.
Right.
The whole thing is not going to work. This whole about to come down like a deck of cards. And so there's a lack of honesty, a lack of transparency to the American public. And this is just another example of the same thing, of a bunch of insiders that think they're above the law.
Right.
And I think a lot of us are absolutely fed up with that.
Last question, because I know you're very busy, not just being on the campaign trail, but you're also simultaneously working as well. Some of the listeners have said that it's really about Eric Holder protecting Barack Obama. This may come down to who is going to blink first. One of them is going to get thrown under the bus for this. Who do you think will act first? Do you think that Obama will distance himself from Holder? Will Holder resign? I mean, you're obviously you're there in Washington, D.C., so you're able to have much more access to things than we all are. What do you see happening?
Well, it's a little bit tricky. Certainly it's a game of chicken. And the White House is obviously dragging their feet. Holder's dragging his feet. He's trying to prolong it. And you can kind of see that. He says, well, I could give you some documentation in addition. You know, that's like, the head of North Korea. Well, we can let you look at this maybe a little bit sometime. All that is just playing for time. And I think that's what Holder is doing, hoping that this thing will kind of blow over with the coming of the next election.
Right.
But I believe, as I said before, Dana, just take these things straight on, and don't be too clever at trying to guess what's going to happen with the politics. Because what I found is that people that say, oh, I'm going to be clever, I'm going to vote this way because I know this thing is going to happen. You never know what's going to happen. But the one thing you do know is what's truth. You just do the right thing and keep going. And then trust the matters to sort out.
Absolutely. Well, we will all definitely be watching. Congressman, thanks so much for your time today. I know you got a very busy schedule. We appreciate your perspective on this.
Well, thank you. And actually, Darrell Issa is a congressman that started with me in Congress, and he is a very smart guy. And he doesn't just let up easily. He is really going after this thing. I think it's a big hats off to Darrell Issa, too.
I would agree with that, definitely. Congressman Todd Akin, thank you so much. I know we'll be talking to you again.
Thanks, Dana.
Thanks, sir. Take care. All right, folks, we have your calls coming up. Stay right here. More of The Dana Show on the way.